Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. Time for DC Spotlight for the week of March 25th, 2026. 10 books we're going to talk about today. The big one in stores, the DC Superman, DC Marvel Superman Spider-Man. Not to be confused with the Marvel DC Spider-Man Superman, which is coming in a couple weeks. So this is similar to how DC and Marvel did a crossover with Deadpool and Batman, a few months ago, where the one that comes out from DC that DC publishes is called DC Marvel, and then the DC character Batman gets first billing / Deadpool, and then vice versa. Right, the one that's Marvel / DC is Deadpool Batman. So this is the same thing, and they're giving us a ton of covers, both versions, whether it's the DC Marvel or Marvel DC. We're getting tons of great covers, so you definitely have your pick of which covers you want to get. It's a decent sized book. I think it's almost 100 pages. And a bunch of well-known creators, DC creators, are there. And what I will say about this, because DC's done several of these types of crossovers, including ones that were digital only, like the Flash Fantastic Four one that Jeremy Adams wrote. But what I will mention about this, as opposed to the Deadpool Batman, this is flashing back in a lot of ways, because there previously was a giant Treasury edition back in the day of Superman Spider-Man, which DC released a facsimile edition of earlier this year. So anyway, that's the big book of the 10 that's out this week, but we'll be talking about all 10 books in detail. We'll try to keep it a little limited with things that are outside of our top 5, as we always do, but it doesn't always work out that way. But yeah, I thought it was an above average week. Nothing really jumped out at me, but nothing was really terrible. And as I was going through and doing my rankings, in thinking about the books as I read them, because I only read everything once this week, which is not always the case. Sometimes I have time to read them more than once, but I've been so busy with all the changes to the channel, with putting out comic book hauls and a different workflow and getting used to that I didn't have a chance to read anything multiple times. But right before we record, one of the things that we do to give you guys a peek behind the curtain is Rocky gives me, in no particular order, he just tells me what's in his top 5. And as he's telling me what's in his top 5, sometimes I can guess what's going to be in his top 5. Sometimes I have no idea. I didn't even guess this time. I didn't have time. But when he's saying what's in his top 5, I'm rethinking what's in my top 5. And I say all that to say, I might change my ranking. I may be changing my rankings. I'm aware of that as we go through. So, and I know you've done it in the past too, Rocky, where you hear what I have
for sure.
And yeah, it kind of, so it's good to get other people's perspectives on books as well. And the last thing I'll mention before we hear from Rocky on what he thought of this week is, don't forget to go check out, because there's just a few days left, check out my interview with Chris Yates about his Kickstarter, Marcus Walker, Kingslayer Protocol, over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. Absolutely fantastic. And a book that you should be on your radar if it's not already, because it was so good. The first issue was so good. It's Exorcism at Buckingham Palace, which is kind of a spiritual successor to Exorcism at 1600 Pen by Hannah Rose May, which has already been optioned for a television show. And I enjoyed that. Yeah. I enjoyed that 1600 Pen series just fine. But oh my God, the Buckingham Palace one is substantially better, I thought. I really, really enjoyed it. So anyway, awesome. Throw it over. Did you read that, Rocky? Did you pick it up?
You know what? I don't actually remember if I put it on my pull list or not. I was a little underwhelmed with Exorcism in 1600 Pennsylvania. So I got the series. So I don't know. I just don't know. I'll have to let you know next week. I don't know if I can't remember.
Like I could get where you're coming from with the 1600 Pen, because even though it was the White House, whatever, it was a little bit of a smaller story, very fast paced. Yeah. And it felt intimate, which you kind of want that from horror at times, but it didn't feel like very epic. It didn't feel like big in scope. The Buckingham Palace one feels big in scope. I definitely recommend checking it out. So, anyway, give us your thoughts on the DC week overall. What do you think?
I really enjoyed this week. In fact, I told you before we were talking that my top 3 were easy. It's actually my top 4. I really enjoyed my top 4. I love my top 4. And overall, this was a more, I enjoyed this week. I enjoyed this week more than last week, which was the beginning of DC Next Level last week. And that was okay. This one I thought was better. And, Yeah, and I was really pleasantly surprised with Superman and Superman Spider-Man. I'm wearing my, for those who are just listening on the podcast, I'm wearing a Superman movie shirt and I'm wearing my Spider-Man cap. It's not, Spider-Man is not surprisingly probably one of my favorite Marvel characters, even though I don't regularly collect him, although I do collect Ultimate Spider-Man, which I think is just ended. But yeah, so it's actually really nice, and I look forward to talking about some of those stories. But overall, I thought this week was pretty good. And just to echo your sentiments, there's nothing more. It's you and I both have been known, or I do change my rankings, and because sometimes you get excited for a comic, and sometimes listening to you talk about it, you get me excited about it when I wasn't previously excited about it, and sometimes vice versa. Sometimes,
Right.
sometimes when we argue and rant, I realize, gee, you know, I didn't like that comic as much as I thought I did, and so it goes both ways.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100% it does. Yeah, the argument can be made: Spider-Man, the most popular comic book character. Like, I get maybe Batman's more well known, or Superman, and certainly Batman, absolute Batman, absolute universe selling better than Spider-Man right now. But I'm just talking about, like, if we look at the whole history of how long more people I think collect Spider-Man maybe than any other character. That's just the way that it is. But yeah, pretty interesting, and kind of on the note of you mentioning Next Level starting out, even though none of those titles really resonated with us, we did acknowledge the fact that they had to maybe be a little more focused on inviting new readers in. So if it felt kind of redundant or things we'd seen before, maybe a little more aimed at a newer audience, and let's give it an arc to see how it does. But all that being said, they all sold really
Yeah,
well.
really,
Lobo,
really well.
yeah, Lobo, Deathstrike, and
Deathstroke.
and,
Yeah,
and Batwoman.
yeah,
Deathstroke. Yeah,
yeah,
when I say Deathstrike,
yeah,
thinking Lady Deathstrike. But yeah, they all sold really well. So that's good. Obviously, good news for Marvel as well. And yeah, really interesting. And obviously, we'll see where they go. Also, I want to mention, I did do over on the Comic Source channel, and I'll do a couple each week where I just pull out our thoughts on one particular book and put it over there for people that just kind of want basically the two biggest books. It was a little hard last week to know what the two biggest. We knew what number one was going to be, and sure enough, so they are over there. The basically the return of young John Kent in Superman Unlimited, and then I chose Deathstroke number one. So I appreciate everybody watching over there as well, and especially for the young John Kent. Like, it has never been more clear to me how passionate people are about bringing the young John Kent back. Like,
yes,
people were like not just leaving a comment, like we were having conversations and everything. I think only one person was like, out of everybody, was like, no, I actually prefer the older John Kent. So, and that was great. I was happy to have somebody, because if there's one out there, there's more, right? But it was interesting because some people think it's temporary, some people think it's going to last or whatever. But yeah, clearly there's a passion for young John Kent because it was on social media as well. And yeah, I think that video already has like over 400 views, I think.
yeah,
So anyway, again, thanks for going and checking it out, everybody, and the other content I've been putting out lately. But
yeah,
let's go ahead and dive
yeah.
into the books this week. And here's one right off the bat. I have it ranked at 6, but maybe I flip it with my number 5 by the end. I don't know, because I actually really enjoyed it, more so than I thought, only because and it's Flash number 31, DC All In Act 2. New creative team. We've got Ryan North writing. We've got Gavin Goudry on the art, Adriana Lucas on colors, and lettering by Buddy Bedoin. Now, Ryan North is very talented. There's no denying that, and I did very much enjoy. I think he did the crypto miniseries that we
Yeah.
reviewed earlier, and I really enjoyed that. But I didn't really his Fantastic Four didn't really resonate with me, and I dropped it after like I think 5-6 issues. It just didn't do it for me. So I didn't know what to expect here. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. So again, I did rank it at 6. But in terms of tone and what's going on, I actually really liked it. I thought the Gavin Goudry art worked pretty well. It's much more lighthearted. I mean, if we're comparing against the Cy Spurrier run, which really didn't work for me, I'm enjoying it much more than that. And the premise that he comes up with, I thought was great as well. It's this whole idea that somebody's crowdfunding or crowdsourcing people being saved by the Flash. So there's people in Central City that are putting themselves in literally in mortal danger. They're jumping off of buildings, they're jumping in front of trains or whatever, because whoever can get video of the Flash saving them and it's the most compelling video of the day, they're going to get $10,000. Uh, and so this is such an interesting idea from Ryan North because Flash is trying to stop it, but how do you stop it? He tells people, "Hey, stop doing this." And he even goes and announces in front of the press. He's like, "Hey, everybody needs to stop doing this." And the reporter's like, "Well, if they don't, are you going to stop saving him?" Well, obviously not. He's a hero. He's still going to keep saving people. So how do you stop it? And he ends up tracking down whoever's sponsoring this, and kind of goes after them. But he's not really motivated to stop doing it, to stop crowdsourcing it. And then we even find out there's a hint that there's somebody else, a bigger bad behind him. So this is such an interesting idea. It's like a superhero rescue being a viral moment. And how do you, like, as a superhero, how is Wally going to stop this? Brilliant idea by Ryan North. I thought it was really, really inspired. And it feels like a Flash storyline, right? Like, it feels interesting. It's not overly complicated and kind of inscrutable and hard to understand the way Cy Spurrier stuff was. This is interesting. It's topical in the kind of social media gig economy world that we live in. But I just thought it was a brilliant idea. So again, it's only the first issue, so we'll see if Ryan North can keep up the high quality. But again, I thought the Gavin Guidry art was great. I thought it was brightly colored, which made a lot of sense for this type of story. So Adriana Lucas, who's a fantastic color artist. So yeah, I was really, really impressed with this. I enjoyed it more than I expected to. Even though I try not to have any expectations, because again, there's things I've read by Ryan North that I've loved, and things that I haven't, that haven't resonated with me. So, yeah, this I have it at 6 right now, but it may slide into the top 5 for me by the end. We'll see. But anything to add, Rocky? I know it didn't quite make your top 5.
No, it came in at number 7 for me, but I enjoyed it too. I thought I've not read really. I've read. I think Ryan North wrote some Squirrel Girl back in the day that I read, and I thought I've always really just known him as a guy who wrote a little like comedy. I've heard good things about his Fantastic Four. It didn't resonate with you, but I've generally heard decent things, and so I assumed that he was competent at writing family stories. So I thought when I heard Ryan North was writing The Flash, I thought, well, good, because Cy Spurrier went really pseudo-scientific, crazy, nutso comic book science-y, and I wasn't a big fan of how Cy Spurrier wrote the family. And I feel like we've gone from one extreme to the other. Cy Spurrier, we got this crazy scientific, crazy explanations for everything, wonkiness. And here, Ryan North almost goes out of his way to dumb it down to just us regular readers. Like, he really spells it out. Basically, Wally West just says, "Hi, I'm Wally, and I run really fast. My daughter, she runs fast, and my son is strong." Has strength. That's really all he says. He doesn't go into some long diatribe about, like something gave birth to the Speed Force and we had the blood this. And it was so wonderful to read. Nice and simple family time. I even enjoyed the comedy at the beginning where Wally and he went to get a casserole and he came back and he tried to heat the casserole while running and he burnt it and Linda knew that he did. And it was just a nice heartfelt moment. And I sort of liked that. And I was pleasantly surprised, and I 100% agree with you, the concept, the whole idea of, we don't have superheroes on our planet, i.e. people with powers. And so at some point, maybe people on the DC Earth 1 or Earth Prime, they would take advantage of that. They take Flash for granted. What happens when you take superheroes for granted? You always assume they're going to be there to save you. Well, then if you can make some money on that, and Flash can be anywhere. In fact, according to Cy Spurrier, he's not writing it, but there could be 2 Flashes, and maybe he can be in 2 places at the same time. What if you got 10 people that are using the app they all want to get saved by the Flash at the same time? Can Flash, if any hero can save more people in the same microsecond, it's Flash. But at some point, what if he fails? And then is it Flash's fault? What's the judgment of society be against a superhero that decides to take a break? So I really like the themes and the directions that this can go. And are really telling. And we don't know who the villain is, the real mastermind behind it. But what a way to really slowly, that would be an effective way to turn the tide against the hero by literally overwhelming them in such a, almost like an interesting way. So, and to my knowledge, I don't think this has been done, this particular, like I say, it's a unique approach to a story that to my knowledge hasn't been done in, at least not in a DC story that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, jury's still out on Ryan Norris. Obviously, it's just the first issue. We certainly don't want to judge his run yet. But the only thing I will say, though, is yeah, we really have swung from one extreme with Icebreaker to the other. And too much of any one is going to be, not great. So if it's always dumbed down, I probably get tired of it after a while because it starts to feel one note. So it really needs to go up and down. So we'll see how it goes long term. There's a Brian Boland variant cover that's really awesome. That was the one that really stood out for me. Although, even though I have a long run of Flash, this hasn't been on my pull list for a long time. But I wonder if I might go back to it. We'll have to wait and see. So, anyway, up next, this book is in my top 5. It's in Rocky's top 5 as well. It's Detective Comics 1001. Again, it's DC All In Act 2. Tom Taylor's continuing on as the writer, but this particular issue has Pete Woods on art and colors, Wes Abbott handling the letters. Regular series artist Mikel Janin does do the main cover, which I really, really enjoyed. And yeah, I really think, I mean, for me, in the mainline DCU, we're talking about probably 3 books that I'm, 4, that I'm really, really enjoying, that are standing out for me. So Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern, I kind of, bundle those together as kind of one. But then Jeremy Adams on Aquaman is also right there. And then the other book I think that is just stellar is this Detective Comics run by Tom Taylor. He's done so many interesting things. And even as tight as DC continuity has been lately, which we as DC fans tend to love, this Detective Comics run has felt outside of it, in a way, outside of continuity, which I'm perfectly fine with. Because that makes such a great book that anybody can pick up at any time, and it has that legacy. It's not dissimilar from Action Comics in a way that's been kind of outside continuity as well, focusing on Superman before he was Superman, Clark Kent learning about his powers and what have you. But with the reign of the Superboys and time travel and what have you, that actually is going to get pulled in a little bit more to the mainline continuity. But that being said, I am a fan of Pete Wood's art, and he does a fantastic job here. But yeah, I mean, I'd love if Mikel would draw every issue, though, because he's one of my favorite artists of all time. But great to have Pete fill in on this issue. I thought he did a fantastic job. We've had Green Arrow and Black Canary show back up in Gotham City. And there's a great moment where Bruce is actually undercover, and he's trying to basically put a tracker on a dirty cop. And Green Arrow kind of stumbles across this interaction. This cop is basically robbing Bruce. Again, Bruce disguised as a drug dealer. He's robbing Bruce of his drugs and his money. And Green Arrow saves him because he doesn't know any better. And then Bruce, has to say, hey, Ollie, you got to let this guy get away. I need him to lead me to, whomever. And there's context in the conversation that there's something going on with Queen Industries and this other corporation that apparently is trying to take it over. It's called Klepp Corp, and I think what's his name, Jonathan Klepp, I think or Richard Klepp is the owner, and so that's part of the reason that Ollie's there with Black Canary, and we'll see the dynamic between Green Arrow and Batman and how it plays out. But what I love is in this interaction, just the kind of the dynamic, the language, the back and forth, the banter that we get from Tom Taylor. Between Bruce and Ollie, clearly longtime friend, but kind of in this iteration, they're not buddy in a way. There's a little bit of rivalry there. They're both billionaires. They both have owned these giant corporations at various times, but it's just great. Just even the like throwaway lines, like when Bruce calls the Batmobile, remotely as he frequently does, and the Batmobile zooms up and like skids to halt in front of him. And Ollie says, "Oh, nice to see you've gone electric," right? Like, that's so great. It's a subtle dig at Bruce in a way for not having gone electric for the longest time. But also we know how, Wally's concerned about, or Ollie's concerned about the environment and what have you. So just little things like that, the little details that make it feel lived in and rich, and that it belongs in this DC universe. And it's just such a great nod to longtime fans, because, we notice things like that based on who these characters are and the history of them and what have you. And then we pivot to a little bit of a mystery at the end, where we have the three, Black Canary, Green Arrow, and Bruce. Well, they're all in their civilian identity, so I guess Dinah, Ollie, and Bruce. And they're standing in front of a grave, and they're talking about when Green Arrow and Black Canary were first in Gotham, way back in the day, in Batman's early days, the early days of all of them, really, when they're starting their career, and how there used to be a fourth. And I don't know about you, Rocky, but I was like, a fourth? Who? Who would this be? And we're seeing the back of the tombstone, and I'm like, who the heck are they talking about? And they go on to talk about him, and hey, it was a tragedy, befell him, and whatever. And then come to find out, the name that's dropped at the end is Prion, and he doesn't even the tombstone doesn't even have a proper name on it. It just has like a quote, and we don't know who this. I don't know who this guy is. I'm like, Prion, who the heck's Prion? I have like no idea. So I think this is another case. It even says stranger, friend, hero. Everyone can be better today than yesterday. We knew his heart, but not his name. So, who was this guy? Batman's the world's greatest detective. He never found out who this Prion guy was. I guess that was his hero name. Like, what is going on? This appears to be another case of Tom Taylor, as he's actually done throughout his Detective Comics run, of going back into Batman's history and fleshing out the early days, whether it was his first story arc where we found out that Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, actually saved Joe Chill when Joe Chill was in a very bad car accident. The most recent character, Lion or Leo, who had ties to Batman's earliest days, and Bruce Wayne is a benefactor for him. So, this has been a continuing theme with Tom Taylor, and the argument could be made that these are retcons, right? Retroactive continuity. But every time so far, and I'm not saying that, this might be the case here, I hope it is, but it might be the case that this contradicts a little bit. And that always bothers me. The more it contradicts, the more it bothers me, obviously. But so far, when Tom Taylor has done these things, he hasn't gone back and retroactively changed continuity to the point where you go, that just doesn't make sense, where it just completely contradicts something that comes before, right? Like I've talked about that. As much as I love New 52 Batman and Court of Owls as a concept or whatever, it still rubs me the wrong way. How could the Court of Owls been there all that time and the world's greatest detective not know about it? Like, come on. Same thing with the Invisible Mafia over in Metropolis. I'm supposed to believe that this crime syndicate has been operating in Metropolis for decades and decades, and Superman's there and had no idea, when the guy can hear everything and see everything. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Same thing with the Detective Comics run that Ram V did. As much as I'm a huge fan of Ram V, like he put things in the past in Gotham City that just don't make sense. They just don't make sense if we go back and look at the history of Batman. Like, it doesn't fit. Tom Taylor's never fallen into that trap. Every time he's put something in and you're like, okay, that could have happened 100%. It doesn't contradict anything that comes before. And so I hope this continues to be the case. I'm in, like, I've talked about this before with Tom's run, where I finished reading an issue of Detective Comics and I immediately go to the next month in our little press access to see if the next issue of Detective Comics is there, because I want to know. And I 100% did that right here. I was like, Prion? Who's Prion? What does he look like? Is it somebody I should know? And so I immediately went to April and I was like, oh, there's no books. There's no books in April. So it's definitely not there. I got to wait just like everybody else. Totally first world problem. But I'm just fascinated. Like, who is Prion? How does he tie in? There's also a great scene at Wildcat's gym, which acknowledged me. And I talk about this not tying in much to DC continuity, but there is an acknowledgement here of Wildcat's death, which I found to be, it really did count. He really didn't come back, because at times JSA has felt disconnected in a way. But I'm sad. It made me more sad here than when it happened in JSA, because I keep expecting him to come back. But here's some acknowledgement that he's gone, and I think this is post DCKO also. So DCKO, Superman remaking the universe, that could have been an opportunity to bring back a few people. Ted Grant among them, Alfred Pennyworth maybe. Haven't heard, haven't seen. So, but anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Detective Comics 1087, brilliant, loved it. can't wait to learn more about Prion. What do you think, Rocky?
Yeah, this is something that DC is doing, and I think most of the writers are doing it. I really like the fact that Tom Taylor, unlike another writer whose first name begins with Tom, he loves continuity, and he looks at continuity as something you can build upon and add to, and that's what Tom Taylor's done here. I just want to say though that while I made a little bit of a dig at that other Tom by the last name King, he wrote a series called Black Canary Back in Black, and he actually focused on the early years of Black Canary when she first met Oliver Queen at Wildcat's gym. And I think Tom Taylor, if I didn't know better, I think maybe he read that, because very clearly here, to my knowledge, there was never an early trinity of Batman, Green Arrow, and Black Canary. There was never that early trinity in those early years. And I also didn't know that Batman, Oliver Queen, and Dinah Lance trained together all those years ago. That's new. I mean, I think it is. But I like it. And they trained in Wildcat's gym. That's kind of cool. I also think this further elevates Black Canary. The elevation of Black Canary's fighting prowess. We can get into a pissing match and argue about, how does she rank in comparison to everyone else? But very clearly here, Tom Taylor is I think he's elevating Black Canary. She gets one up on Bruce Wayne here in a boxing ring, and I like the elevation of Black Canary. I mean, if you're going to put her to the level of Lady Shiva, then you gotta have these spots in the past. This is a little bit these slight retcons done in a very respectful way. That Black Canary, Dinah Lance was always a kick-ass character. She was arguably. It's even said Dinah Lance was the best student, except perhaps for Prion that we learn about at the end. But she was a brighter star than even Bruce Wayne was. And so that's interesting. So I don't mind if Batman falls off his pedestal a little bit. And I really like that sort of work. And we see Mark Waid doing that over in the pages of World's Finest and what have you. And I sort of like that all of DC, we see Jeremy Adams doing it. And I wish more writers at DC would realize, because look at Jeremy Adams, look at Tom Taylor, look at Mark Waid, look at Scott Snyder. Look at what they're doing. They're adding to existing continuities. They're not abandoning them. They don't focus just over story over continuity. No, it's both. And when you give the fans both, and you also make it new reader friendly, and this is new reader friendly in a very good way as well. It just pays dividends. And I love the hint. Who is this Prion, this mysterious character? He apparently has a daughter. I'm guessing that's his daughter that visits him at the gravesite. And it's just, I love this. It's very interesting. And in my view, it's also adding to the martial arts history of the DCU, which at some point, because I'm a big fan of that from the Batgirl side, Cassandra Cain, but all of this are linked. So I sort of like the non-superpowered martial arts side of the DCU, and Tom Taylor's expanding on that. So this was a really exciting issue for that reason, and it made my top 3.
Yeah, it's in my top 3 as well. I don't know if I gave the ranking. I completely agree with you on Black Canary. I'm fine if she's a better fighter than Batman. It doesn't mean she's necessarily a more formidable hero, because it's that one aspect, right? Batman still has strategy and tactics and his skills as a detective that are probably higher up. So if you're ranking heroes who's maybe more, I don't know how to properly phrase it without putting like not more important or whatever, but just has kind of more agency or what have you. Batman's going to be a little more up the totem pole. But that doesn't mean that in this one particular area, there might not be somebody that surpasses him, right? Like Batman might be number 2 in everything, right? Like Mr. Terrific is maybe smarter than him, but he's number 2. He might be number 2 in fighting because Black Canary's number 1. But nobody, if you average out all the skills, Batman ends up being the most, the one that's on average the smartest or the best or highest ranking or what have you. So yeah, I'm totally okay with that. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about Flash, I was going to ask you, any guesses on who that big bad might be? Because I have a thought.
Honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not really like a diehard Flash rogues expert or anything. Honestly, the first thing that popped into my head was Trickster. Because I thought maybe it seems like maybe he's upping his game or something, or just
I had somebody pop into my head who's not even anybody that I would consider a Flash villain, which might be, but because it's Ryan North who hasn't written the Flash before. What about Maxwell Lord? Wouldn't it make sense to be Maxwell Lord? and be interesting.
It could. Interesting that he would, we last saw him in the pages of the New Gods.
Absolute power.
Yeah. And why he would pick Flash of all villains to do that with. But hey, yeah, it could be. Who knows, right?
Yeah. Anyway, not to go backwards, we'll jump forward, everybody, to the next book, Justice League Unlimited number 17 from Mark Waid, Clayton Henry on art, Tamara Bonvillain on colors, Ariana Mayer on letters. So this one, I don't know where to rank it. It's in Rocky's top 5. I might move this one as well. There's things I liked about it. There's things I didn't. So I'm going to listen to Rocky talk, and maybe that'll help me make my decision.
I like this issue. First of all, I really love cover A. I just thought the cover is just absolutely gorgeous. Just pops off the page. It looks awesome. And I also want to give a shout out. There's a whole slew of variant covers here. There's one with Blue Beetle and Booster Gold and Blue Beetle wearing like bad Christmas sweaters. It looks like a play on that movie with. Those two comedians.
Step Brothers.
Yeah, Step Brothers. It looks hilarious.
What's his name? Riley.
Yeah,
can't remember his first name.
Something O'Reilly or something.
Right. It's Will Ferrell and
something O'Reilly.
Something C. Riley. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Bruno Redondo on that cover, by the way.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and I love the Vixen cover. There's also there's another Brian Boland cover of Metamorpho, which is quite good. I try to get a Brian Boland cover whenever I can. So those were cover buys for me this week. At least I buy them when they're not. If they're ratio, I don't buy them. But if they're open order, I always get the open order Brian Boland covers. But in any event, as for the story itself, I like this more because it's establishing a new status quo. That is to say, where a lot is revealed about what's happening now because the Omega tournament is over. King Omega was crowned. It was ultimately Superman, but he gave up being King Omega. And Batman and Wonder Woman and the rest of the team that returned, they're reporting to they're filling in what happened. They're filling in the rest of the Justice League Unlimited as to what happened. And apparently the Superman, when he gave that up, that power, gave up being King Omega, all the Omega energy returned to the contestants. So all the contestants that were part of the Omega tournament, that Omega energy that they had acquired has returned to them. And apparently they've all had visions of some kind. Visions that will... they've had prophecies. Some, as Captain Adam says, some prophecies are clear, others vague. But apparently they just have this... They have this gut feeling that if they don't fulfill their missions, that these prophecies that they've had visions of, that something bad will happen. So they got to work as a team. And so now, of course, that sets things up. We don't know what all these visions were, what all the prophecies were. We get little hints. We see Shazam looking at a mirror image of himself who looks kind of evil. We see Cyborg seeming to have a vision of some sort of device. I'm not even sure. Even Aquaman seems to be disturbed about whatever his vision was. Maybe it seems to be a vision dealing with other planets, possibly the Blue. I don't know. So all these seeds are planted in terms of where this is going to go. So right away we know that moving forward, there's all kinds of things that could happen because that threw Superman giving up the Omega energy really threw a wild card into things. We really don't know what happened at Darkseid. It's inevitable that Darkseid's going to return. We already know that the rest of the multiverse had their own Omega tournaments as well. So there's that. And and meanwhile, I like the fact that Batman and Wonder Woman sort of, along with Shazam, end up having a debate. And that is whether or not to give amnesty to the villains that partook of the tournament. Because if they're all granted now with Omega energy and they've all had visions and they have some sort of prophecy, then maybe they ought to grant amnesty to them. And there was a particularly well-crafted scene where a couple of villains, honestly, I'm not even familiar who these villains are. I can't remember. I'm trying to find their names.
Yeah. It's Girder and Girder and Tar Pit. They're Flash villains,
right?
Kind of minor rogues.
Right. Well, anyways, they are both. They ended up helping people. So they were supposed to be in the Phantom Zone because that's where all the villains were sent during the as the Earth was turning into apocalypse. They tried to send most of the villains into the Phantom Zone, and the villains, but a lot of them had escaped, and they tried to return a lot of these villains back to prison, but they couldn't. They were looking for Girder and his buddy there. And anyways, they were actually helping people because the experience that these villains had, basically confronting Armageddon, they want to redeem themselves, and so some of them have maybe going on a quest of redemption. It had that impact on them, and of course, Wonder Woman is all about redemption and everything else. And I thought it was really good. This sort of new touchy-feely Batman who. This is definitely an era of a less grim and gritty Batman. He actually asks Shazam, Captain Marvel, and Wonder Woman, since they have the wisdom of Solomon and the wisdom of Athena, what should they do? Should they grant amnesty to the villains or not? And of course, the big question: do you want to grant amnesty to Lex Luthor? And in any event, I thought it was well done. I thought it did a good job, sort of summarizing. This feels very much like an epilogue to me to DCKO, and kind of a much needed one. As a longtime reader, I was very invested in this comic because I want to know where the DC is moving forward, and I felt that this is I'm kind of excited to know where we're going to go from here. So I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was going through my rankings while you were talking, and I can't move it up any more than I already have it when I'm looking at it. But I mean, you're right. I very much enjoyed this. First of all, the Clayton Henry art is over the top, fantastic as it usually is. He's become one of my favorite artists, man. He just does such a good job. There's so much emotionality in the faces, whether it's when the heroes are talking and it's brought to their attention. Hey, these villains are trying to help and they're not in the greatest place. Superman's missing. Like there's heavy stuff going on. So whether it's that, like that page right there, actually, the facial expression on Supergirl, like if you pan back in the bottom left corner, like you can see, the concern in her face for missing Superman and what have you. I also want to point out the fact that Captain Atom is standing up there with Batman and Wonder Woman. I like Captain Atom being elevated. I think he's an underused character. I think he doesn't get the respect and the use that he should at DC. So I love that. And then you go all the way to the very last page, talk about Luthor having the chance to get amnesty. And just the look on his face as he's holding that Justice League Unlimited membership card. Nothing good will come of that. We've seen Luthor, before in the hands of Jeff Johns coming out of Forever Evil as a member of the Justice League wearing the Superman armor. That didn't work out too well. Although we never got a good explanation of why he turned it. It was time for him to be evil again when Year of the Villain was coming around and he just switched with the whole doorknob and Scott Snyder's Justice League run. We won't think about that too much. It's just wonky. Mm-hmm. But interesting, and you're right in terms of the importance of this issue as a follow-up. Hey, what are the consequences of the DCKO tournament? What happened? What's going on or whatever? Really, really important. Probably the most important book that's come out of DCKO. Like if you want the follow-up, you want to know what the status quo is, and still hints for the future with these visions that you mentioned that they're seeing. And we get to see Shazam. We get to see his vision. We get to see Aquaman's vision. And again, facial expression on that page is very good by Clayton Henry. Who's we saw a few others. Cyborg.
Yeah. Very vague. I think very vague. I don't know what they mean, but it's...
Yeah. It looked like a father. Well, Shazam's he looks evil.
Yeah.
Batman or Aquaman's is cosmic in nature, and we know he's the Avatar of the Blue, so that would make sense. He's got to go cosmic. And Cyborg's looking at this round thing that looks kind of like a father box, maybe, or maybe it's the Heart of Apocalypse that there's going to be follow up there. We know ever since his origin was retconned in the New 52 Justice League that he has ties with his origin to apocalyptic technology, which wasn't the case originally when he was first created. So yeah, a very important book if you want to kind of get the epilogue and the follow up. And it seems like Justice League Unlimited is going to be the book to read if you want the follow up to DCKO. And you're right about those covers. They're fantastic. Dan Mora does the main cover. That one's great. The Bruno Redondo one that looks is John C. Reilly, by the way. I did look it up. I can't believe. So for whoever was out there listening, yelling at their phone or computer or whatever, it's John C. Reilly. Yeah, the Brian Boland Metamorpho is fantastic. It's Leslie Lee on the Women's History Month variant for
Yeah.
Vixen, which is a really great looking cover as well.
Sexy, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, up next we have Superman number 36. This is definitely my top three. Writer Joshua Williamson, art and cover by Dan Mora, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, letters by Ariana Mayer. I mean, Superman's missing, so who better to take over Superman's book during reign of Superboys than Superboy Prime? And having Dan Mora back on it is fantastic. And it starts in true Superboy Prime fashion with him breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to us, which I really, really enjoyed. But this made your top as well, Rocky. And I want you to go first and give us your thoughts on it. And then I'll add anything that stood out for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is, this made my top three. First of all, damn you, DC. I mean, I'm always bitching about variant covers, but I think I'm getting three of them for sure. And I showed the three I'm getting. I'm sure there's probably more than three, but these, I mean, I know, in fact, I know there's more than three. There's four, but anyways, I love it. All the covers are just amazing. The fact, I got to say that I had mixed feelings at first about Superboy Prime breaking the fourth wall, but man, I've enjoyed it far more than I realized. And maybe, he's kind of like, maybe he's almost like DC's Deadpool for all intents and purposes. But he's just, anyways, it works. I mean, I hated Superboy Prime. I hated what they did to him. I liked the way he was. He was such a nice guy when he was the murderer and they denigrated his character like that. I hated it. And but I'm really enjoying this breaking the fourth wall. And what's even more is that they're doubling down on the fourth wall. They're really doubling down on it. I mean, Superboy Prime. I mean, heck, I love the scene. Lois, there's a scene where Zatanna, Katana, Huntress, and Vixen are all checking Superboy Prime out as he's lifting weights. I mean, and they seem to be enjoying what they're looking at, but they also acknowledge that he is kind of a psychopath, and Superboy Prime's got a reputation, as Mr. Terrific points out to Lois, and of course they don't want him on the JLL, the Justice League satellite. They don't want Superboy Prime on the satellite because he's got a bad reputation. Notwithstanding the fact that he saved the universe a couple times, since he went on those genocidal sprees back in Infinite Crisis. So Lois comes up with the idea, well, let's get him a job. You can work for me at the Planet. You can work in the mail room, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's just the way this story goes. The story is told. I mean, Superboy Prime, he's not only, I love how he effortlessly seems to talk to people around him, like his mom, well, not his mom, like Lois, like any member of Mr. Terrific. And then he'll throw in his knowledge about, he'll break the fourth wall so effortlessly. And it just adds to the humor. And because I'm a longtime reader, and so are you, I think we enjoy it so much for that reason. And even Lois is taken aback by it. I mean, at one point, Superboy Prime even says to her, you're actually a good character. You actually had a series that ran for more than 100 issues one time. Of course, and she doesn't even know what he's talking about. What do you mean, number one? But as Mr. Terrific says, that he warns Lois that the reason why the Justice League is worried about Superboy Prime is that he knows something about all of our futures. He's read all the comic books. I mean, you can imagine if you or I or any of us readers were suddenly transported to a world that had superheroes, and we could say, well, I kind of know how this story ends. We would have a lot of power. And anyways, it just works so well. And then with Superboy Prime, my favorite part of the issue is when he ends up working at a comic book shop, which is even more breaking the fourth wall. How insane. Superboy Prime decides to work at a comic book shop. And the guy doesn't even want to hire him but then he uses his super speed to bag and board 100 comics real quick. So he gets the job. So he's got no problem, sort of cheating, using his powers to get a job at a comic book shop. And he's wearing a Legion of Superheroes shirt. And anyways, this is a lot of fun. this is a lot of fun, and part of me can't believe it works. But it does, and yet it just seems to work so well, and and he's got that scar, he's got the Superman S like burned in on his chest, and even that seems to work, and yeah. Anyways, I love this. I just love this, and I'm kind of glad that Superman is on hiatus for a while. I'm really glad that Superboy Prime is going to be, he seems to have the love of the people of Metropolis. They like that he's there to help them out. And I really like the cliffhanger too, because who would have thought that Manchester Black would come back, seemingly as a ghost, because the last time we saw Manchester Black, he was used as sort of the character to get rid of Superman's secret identity. He made it the case that if anyone remembers that Clark is Superman, that they would have a heart attack. And Perry White ended up having the heart attack. And in any event, Lex Luthor ended up killing Manchester Black, but he seems to be back as a ghost. How is that? It just seems to me it's another Bendism that is being removed, or another course correction. But in any event, I really enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness to Bendis, he was the one that revealed Superman's identity, which was a terrible idea. Right. But I think it was PKJ that undid it by having Luthor basically kill Manchester Black, because the effort of doing that worldwide killed Manchester Black, which was great. Because Manchester Black is one of those characters that he's just so abrasive, and he's so dislikable that when he was killed, you were kind of like, he finally got his comeuppance. And
I thought that was good. I thought PKJ did a good job of that. I thought that was good.
It was a brilliant idea, and now Williamson is building on that. It's a brilliant idea to bring him back as whatever. Like, is he his ghost? Maybe he's just a mental projection. We know Manchester Black, one of the most powerful, had some of the most powerful mental abilities in the DC universe. So, if he was powerful enough to basically keep his psyche intact after his corporeal body was gone, I buy that. I buy that 100%. So maybe not a traditional ghost here in the supernatural sense, but just able to keep his psychic presence alive, and now out for revenge. Because again, although it was Luthor that did it, when Luthor was trying to prove to Superman that hey, we should be buddy, I'm on your side. Manchester Black's not gonna blame Luthor. He's gonna blame Superman, right? He's gonna be like, it was Superman, the fact that I did him a favor and it killed me or whatever. Yeah, he's going to be pissed off about that. So I thought that was brilliant. When I got to that last page and I saw Manchester Black, I was like, yeah. Because here's the thing, like for being the first superhero, Superman doesn't have the best and kind of biggest rogues gallery. There's very few villains that you think of. I mean, obviously Lex comes to mind, Brainiac, Parasite to some extent, the Toyman. But there's not a lot, Eradicator, Terra, they've tried to introduce them. A lot of them haven't stuck. Doomsday, is another one. So Manchester Black, it's good to continue to add to Superman's rogues gallery. So yeah, I'm glad to see him back. As far as get more Prime because Superman's missing, yeah, I'm all for it, right? Like I've gone on record as saying many times that Superboy Prime is one of my favorite characters, and I was so heartbroken when DC had him do the heel turn, because it just, in my mind to this day, it still doesn't make sense for him to do what he did. But here's the thing, and I've had this conversation with Joshua Williamson. I've talked about it on the show before, where Superboy Prime, Jeff Johns did the redemption of him, and I was worried when Joshua Williamson brought him back, and he said the redemption is going to stick. But then we saw moments where we thought maybe it wasn't going to stick. And Josh was like, be patient, I told you. But here's the thing, and literally the conversation I've had with Josh is that, yes, despite the fact that Superboy Prime is attempting to redeem himself, the things that he's done, the bad things that he's done, that's baggage that he's always going to carry around, right? And Josh is adamant about that's something that you can't wipe it away completely, right? And it's right here in this issue, as you mentioned, with Mr. Terrific going, yeah, the guy's done some good stuff recently, but we don't want him here on the Justice League satellite because everybody looks at him and thinks about all the horrible crap he's done, in addition to him having all this secret knowledge about us. This is what I'm coming to discover about Superboy Prime, and I think what's going to define the character moving forward. Because even here, with him kind of getting the job, which is fun, it's very meta, him getting the job at the comic book store and what have you, and thinking, what would Superman do but we even see him at one point snap and go the other way, where he's ripping the head off a character, and then wait, that didn't really happen. That was just a page of a comic book or what have you. There's a manic sort of presence to him, right? There's a mania to him. Like if you've ever been around somebody who's suffering a manic episode, they have bipolar disorder or whatever, they get all like hyped up and you don't know what they're going to do next. And that's the mania. That's the uncertainty. I think that's always going to be inherent to Superboy Prime, right? Like, okay, supposedly he's been redeemed. Supposedly he's going to do the right thing now. Suppose he's going to be a hero. He's not going to kill anybody. He's not. But he's done so many horrible things. It's always going to be in the back of our minds, even as readers, and go, well, is this thing where he snaps and goes the other way? Like he's going to walk on that razor's edge all the time. And I would hope that eventually, like he evolves past that, and that could be really rife for potential for stories to have him mature as a character, because he is still a very young Superman. You know, when you talk about just his physical age, and all the things that he's gone through, and he hasn't matured in the same way that, you know, the main universe Superman has, and that sort of thing. So it's really interesting. He's such an interesting character now that he has that. Oh my God, he could snap at any moment and flip around and not be a hero and go back to being a villain. So in a way, you're kind of like, you're always kind of walking on eggshells. There's always that doubt in the back of your mind. And that's for us as readers. And I think Joshua Williamson is doing a really good job in this issue of showing that, hey, that's the characters in the DC universe too. And that might be the most meta thing of all, right? And what a brilliant thing to pull off. That the way that the characters in the DC universe and the DC universe main Earth feel about Superboy Prime is the same way we as readers are feeling about him. That's very meta. And then you add in the next layer that this is the most meta character that supposedly is from our Earth and reads comics and knows all the stories. Like it's like a story within a story within a story, right? Like brilliantly done by Joshua Williamson. What an incredible job. I could not be more happy that this is where we have Superboy Prime right now, and that Joshua Williamson is writing him. Again, someday do I hope he gets back to being, you know, much more of that heroic character that he was first introduced as in the first Crisis. Was it Detective Comics Presents number 87, I think it was. Yes, I would love that if we got there someday, but I'm not in a big hurry to get there. Nowhere near as in a big of a hurry as I was at one point, because of the brilliant job that Joshua Williamson is doing. So yeah, this was a no-brainer, top 3 for me. Just brilliantly done.
Yeah.
Okay, up next we have Harley Quinn, number 60, The Hark Knight Returns. Part 1, back-to-back in town. Elliot Kalan is the writer, Carlos Oliveras on art, Marisa Louise on colors, Lucas Catoni on letters. Not in my top 5. This actually came in at number 10 for me. That being said, even though it came in last, I did really enjoy it. This is Harley dealing with her trauma that's happened so recently. I enjoyed the Carlos Oliveras art more than I ever have on this particular issue, especially the splash page. Harley's wearing a bat cowl. Her eyes are glowing. She has a bat symbol like tied to her chest, which is awesome. And she's trying to channel Batman. She's trying to be a dark, brooding sentinel of justice. And it just really, really works. It just really works. To me, this is the best written issue, best characterization, just the best book of Elliot Kalan's run. Like just brilliantly done. I really, really enjoyed it. Her trying to have this edge and be a Batman-like character was just fantastic. I thought it was great. Anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think it's the most interesting. And the art actually kind of suits the sort of like the grimness of it, and she's definitely going through something. It's going to be interesting to see where Elliot Kalan takes this, because so far he's got a very particular approach to Harley Quinn in terms of he's a funny guy. I mean, there's always a lot of humor in this, but I'm wondering if he's going to have a deeper take or a deeper meaning, or if this is just going to be like remain sort of lighthearted, because this hints at darker tones. This hints at something more. And I'm really curious to see where it goes, because it's very different, his take, very different, and we'll have to see. I'm really curious to see where this story goes, and I'm like I said, this is probably the best, I think, opening to a story arc for Harley Quinn in his run. Although I really do like Althea, I like that supporting that other character. But this is good. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I want to shout out. There's a Guillaume March variant cover that homages. I think it's Batman 431. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Which is McFarlane, like the super expensive cover only because it's McFarlane. Well, here's Harley Quinn in that pose with Poison Ivy, and I love the fact that she's standing on a stool to be tall enough. That's just great. So I could see that being a really hot cover, everybody. So if you're so inclined, you may want to pick it up. All right, up next book's in my top three. It is Green Lantern 33. Oh, but wait, it's Green Lantern number 600. It's the 600th issue of Green Lantern. There's multiple stories in it. Most of them are written by Jeremy Adams. We have the main story, I Love L.A., written by Jeremy with his regular Green Lantern artist, Zermanico, Romulo Fajardo Jr. on the colors, and Dave Sharp on the letters. Then there's City of Angels, The Origin of Kyle Rayner, written by Jeremy with V. Ken Marion on art, Veronica Gandini on colors, and then Dave Sharp on the letters. And then Brighter Day, The Origin of Hal Jordan, written by Jeremy with gorgeous pencils by Dan Jurgens, inks by Norm Ratman, colors by Adriana Lucas, and letters by Dave Sharp. And then Light in the Darkness, which is a Kyle Rayner story written by Ron Mars, who's the co-creator of Kyle Rayner, with a longtime Green Lantern artist, worked with Ron for years. Daryl Banks, colors in that one by Chris Sotomayor, and letters by Dave Sharp. So, yeah, this was a no-brainer in my top three. I thought all these creators did a great job on this oversized 600th issue, really kind of giving us all sorts of different facets of the Green Lantern mythos, but especially Kyle Rayner. Like, if you're a Kyle Rayner fan, you owe it to yourself to pick up this issue, because in so many ways, Kyle is the star of this issue. Even though Hal's kind of front and center on that cover, we do get the origin of Hal. We also get an origin of Kyle Rayner. But even the main story, it's Kyle in Odyssey, back in L.A. Kyle's trying to be a little more Earth-centric these days. He's trying to... you know what? Now that I look at this art, hold on a second. I'm looking at the art for the main story. Yeah, and that. Okay, yeah.
It's Zermanico, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. Yeah, it is Zermanico. But what's interesting is, so as you're going through, it starts with a couple of pages by Zermanico, but then Kyle is telling his origin story to Odyssey, and that's when it switches to Kyle's origin, and that's where we get the V. Ken Marion art. So that's why I was a little bit confused. And him retelling his own origin, it's interesting the way Jeremy inserts it into this story, because then we go back to the Zermanico art, but it's Kyle's origin and Kyle's own words, which is really fun, and provides a little bit more context that isn't really in the original story. You know, when you talk about that Emerald Twilight story. And I can say that with confidence because I just reread those issues recently, just last weekend.
Yeah.
So it's really well done. And again, if you're a fan of Kyle Rayner, you got to pick this up.
Yeah, and there's you notice that there's no reference to a woman in a refrigerator. Alex DeWitt, he kind of breezed.
Yeah, he does talk about Alex, and she does make an appearance here. And you remember, it wasn't so long ago I called out Jeremy saying, hey, can you bring back Alex DeWitt? And then when I reread those issues, I was again reminded of what a fantastic character she was. And if anybody can bring her back, I'm like, oh, you have Odyssey right there. She's right there in the car with Kyle. She's hearing Kyle's origin. She, is like, oh, it's terrible what happened to this woman. I'm going to go travel back in time and I'm going to save her. I'm going to pull her out of the timeline before she gets stuffed in the refrigerator. And that's how you can bring her back, Jeremy. That's how you can bring her back. I don't even need co-writing credit. But it could, I don't know if DC would let him do it. It's such a controversial thing or whatever. But anyway, then it shifts back to the main story with Odyssey and Kyle, but Wally West Flash shows up. And this was a thing in the 90s, right? Like if you go back to the late 70s and 80s, it was Flash, Barry Allen, and Green Lantern Hal Jordan that were good friends that often crossed over into each other's books. And so many times when Green Lantern would show up in, and he was even at one point, the Green Lantern book was canceled, and he was just showing up in backup stories in the Flash series. And when those characters would interact, so many times it was Flash, Barry Allen, and Green Lantern, Hal Jordan just sitting on the roof of a building, like the edge of a building, chatting. Well, in the 90s, it was Kyle Rayner and Wally West, the legacy characters that built a friendship. And so the story that plays out here, I'm glad Jeremy's acknowledging that, and we get to see interactions between Wally and Kyle Rayner. So that's great as well. Obviously, the Hal Jordan origin is done very well. Again, not anything new here, but it is good to see. Great as a kind of a modern take on his origin, and certainly very traditional to put in these anniversary issues for, newer readers who may not, know the origin or have seen the details before. So that's done really, really well. And then, having the co-creator of Kyle Rayner do a story with Darryl Banks, Light in the Darkness, reminding us of the importance of Kyle Rayner, because he's not, I would say, even the third or most important Lantern right now in terms of how often he shows up. Mm-hmm. I kind of think it goes Hal, John Stewart, Guy Gardner right now in the terms, and I'm not saying like fan wise or popularity or whatever. I'm just saying in the importance in the eyes of DC editorial, that's what the ranking seems to be. And the argument could be made he might not even be fourth, but when we get the story from Ron Mars, I'm reminded of all the things he's done. He was the lantern bearer, as he's called, right? He was the one that kept the
torch bearer. The torch bearer.
Yeah, the torch bearer. He was the one that kept the Corps alive. He was literally the only Green Lantern. And again, part of why this hits for me so much is because I've been doing so much Green Lantern reading lately, getting ready to do some content for the Lanterns TV show. And the reasons DC made the change and what they wanted to do and how they wanted to simplify things instead of having the Corps, because that was the opposite of what they did when Green Lantern hit 200. They made where Hal wasn't the main star anymore, and they wanted something big and sprawling, space cops, whatever. And then they figured, we don't want that. Actually, we want to go back to what we were doing before and focus on one. But they didn't want it to be Hal. They wanted a new, accessible character that people could feel ownership over. That was Kyle. And then Kyle helped rebuild the Corps in Green Lantern Rebirth. And then he became Ion, and he's done so many different things. White Lantern, he's done so many different things. He's so unique in so many different ways. And this story by Ron Mars reminds us of that. And it's
also that he's a comic book artist.
Yeah, comic book artist.
He likes,
and how that plays in with how he builds his constructs and everything.
Yeah,
and yeah, it just again, like reading this Green Lantern 600 right after I've been diving into Green Lantern, and specifically this era where Kyle first showed up, has just been so much fun. Because there was even what was the hate mail that Ron Mars got? Like they formed some kind of a I can't remember what they called themselves, but they and again, this was in the days before the internet. And they formed this community, and they were sending all this regular mail, snail mail to DC, trying to get. I'll look it up as you're talking about it, but trying to get DC to reinstate Hal Jordan and everything. And they were complaining. Remember, they said that one of their big complaints was Kyle Rayner's mask looked like a crab. They called him Krabby and all that sort of stuff. It's just a fun walk down memory lane, and perfect timing with Green Lantern 600 coming out. So I thought the art here was great. It's a great celebration of Green Lantern. The only complaint, small nitpick I have is it would have been great to see some other Lanterns besides Hal and Kyle, but this is really a Kyle focused issue, which I'm perfectly fine with. But selfishly, I'm always like, well, let me see, Kilowog. Let me see, Salak, and I love all the Green Lanterns. Where's Chip? Where's Nort? It's always great when those guys show up as well. So anyway, give us your thoughts on this, Rocky.
Well, Hal Jordan falls in a similar boat to Barry Allen with me. When Barry Allen died in the original Crisis, I didn't care. I only cried when Supergirl Kara died. And Hal Jordan got really boring. And I really thought they made a mistake. They gave him gray hair. He was getting old. I thought he was an outdated hero. And so I thought it was inspired when Jeff Johns came along and said, no, he's got gray hair because he's possessed by Parallax. And then they corrupted him. Then he destroyed the Corps. He became Parallax. I like that. And then the Green Lantern, Green Lantern was fun to read again. And then when this guy named Kyle Rayner showed up, there was one lone guardian left. And all of a sudden, this comic book artist, Kyle Rayner, showed up. He became my Green Lantern, straight up. And I loved him right back to the early days where he took on Major Force and Alex Duet, and that was a great time to collect Green Lantern comics because it felt you were collecting from the beginning. And what I like here is this begins an entire arc. The rise of Kyle Rayner starts here. I mean, this is great because you look at what Morgan Hampton's doing with Guy Gardner. Hal Jordan's already got prominence here. He's on an adventure because there's another clone of himself that's possessed by Krona, so he's getting to the bottom of that. We got a huge power set for John Stewart that was done by Thornton's run. He had an entire series. And PKJ gave him a good one too. War with PKJ's John Stewart Green Lantern War Journal, and so Kyle Rayner's due. And I love the fact that he's getting his due. And this is such a great way. Jeremy Adams understands the assignment here. This is DC Next Level, and even if this isn't next level per se, this comic, it's not advertised as that. It's a great jumping on point. This is all of these DC wisely. These are good jumping on points. Scott Snyder talked about it. They talked about bringing in new readers, having good jumping on points, so that not only or if you're familiar with the characters, will you stay on board and enjoy it, but if you're new, there's something here for you as well, and that keeps you along for the ride. So I quite enjoyed this. I didn't need to see a Kyle Rayner's origin again. I know it. I didn't need to see Hal Jordan's again. I know it. But it was nice to see it again because every now and then, we know this as longtime readers. It's nice to have those origin stories every now and then, sort of like to refresh the batteries. It's like getting an oil change every now and then. You need it. Just a reminder of why you like these characters, right? So anyways, I thought this was really well done. And it made my... Actually, this did fall out of my top 5, but it was very good.
Yeah, and I guess for me, again, wanting to see more, I can just pick up the Scott Koblish cover. You see it there behind Rocky. I don't know how well you could see because there's so many characters, so many different Green Lanterns. That's a David Aja cover there in the middle, which is fantastic as well. And I did look it up. It was Heat, Hal's Emerald Attack Team, and their big push, BBHJ, bring back Hal Jordan. And yeah, they wrote, they flooded letters columns. They wrote letters to DC, sent mail to the office. They showed up at the DC offices in New York, demanding Hal Jordan be brought back. Like it was aggressive. It was aggressive at times. Sent Ron Mars hate mail. But yeah, Heat is what I was thinking of. Pretty funny when you think about it nowadays. Anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have The Peril of the Brutal Dark, an Ezra Cain mystery, issue number 2. It's in the new Vertigo DC line. Chris Condon is the writer. Jacob Phillips on art. This is chapter 2, A Learning Curve, with Hassan Otsmal and Elhau doing the letters. I've really, really been enjoying this. We talked about the first issue. I think it might have been my book of the week. This comes in for me at number 5. I really, really enjoyed it. As I said, it's very pulpy. Ezra Cain is a very capable private investigator. Was an archaeology major in college. You definitely get the Indiana Jones vibes and feel. This is a little bit more of a setup issue. The pacing does slow down just a little bit as compared to the first issue. But one of the things that I loved about the first issue was how rich the world is that Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips are building, and that continues in this issue, especially with Phillips' art at the end, toward the end of the issue, kind of the last 25% maybe, where Ezra Cain has gotten a clue. He's found out that the case he agreed to take to find this missing anvil of Hephaestus is coinciding with the favor that a cop asked him to do to locate this missing friend of his, and he sends that friend's wife in, and Ezra Cain finds out that individual that's missing, he was the night watchman at the same museum where the anvil went missing from. So it seems like these two these two cases are linked, and so he goes to it's actually I think like a union headquarters for the clockmakers union, where this guy that's missing, he had gone there for a union meeting, and it's a German union. And again, this is in the days between World War I and World War II. And this guy went there, he's a German immigrant, and he wanted something, he wanted a familiar feel of feeling like he was back in Germany. But when he came home from that meeting, he was very disturbed and he didn't want to talk about it with his wife. And so that's the clue that Ezra needs. And so he goes there and to investigate. And it's the last, like I said, about the last 25% of the issue. And it's done so brilliantly. And the mood of it, the mystery of it is set up so brilliantly by Jacob Phillips' art, because there's very little dialogue, very little. And this is where kind of the pulpy feel comes in, the really rich world comes in. And it's just a brilliant job. It's why Condon and Phillips work so well as a team. We also get a chance to see Ezra Cain talking to his old archaeology professor, which provides some context for the story as well. And their interactions are pretty fun. And it gives us insight into who Ezra Cain is, as Ezra is we get a chance to see who Ezra is through the eyes of his professor, by the way this old mentor of his talks to him and talks about him and what have you. And again, brilliantly done. And it continues to do what I love so much about the first issue, which is build a really immersive world. The world building is so rich here, and it's done so subtly. It's a mastercraft's job of how to do this. So hope you guys all had a chance to go listen to my interview that I did with Chris Condon after the first issue dropped. We talked about this as well as upcoming stuff with the Ultimate Universe, his other independent work that's coming out, and we talked a little about the first issue of Brutal Dark as well. So this didn't make your top 5, Rocky, but anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say that what's funny is that this didn't make my top 5 because I felt that everything that was revealed here, you talk about how much was revealed here, like it's in many ways it's sort of setting things up and it's sort of spelling things out, but as a compliment to how well the first issue was structured, everything revealed in this second issue I got from the first issue. I just inferred it from the dialogue and the pages and everything else. And so that's a compliment to how all that first issue was put together. This second issue was just focusing more of the same with fantastic art, dialogue, and that Indiana Jones sort of hint a little bit with the crime noir / Indiana Jones, because this Anvil of Hephaestus, of course, seems to have metaphysical effects and maybe can create some machine-like monsters. And of course, we know the Nazis believed in the occult, right? And this is before World War II, Americans don't really believe in the occult, but this professor has the concern, and he says to Ezra, look, the American government, they don't realize that I saw this. This is real. It's magical or something. But the Nazis take this seriously. The Americans aren't. And just to reinforce that, there's even a letter that the professor wrote. A copy of the letter that the professor wrote to the president is actually at the back of the issue, which really reinforces that as well. And so you could understand why this professor's so concerned that, of course, you tell the American government that, by the way, you got these strange creatures, this mystical shit that I saw. I was on this dig in 1923. Believe me, this is a real problem. I mean, American government have got more important things on their mind right now, probably, leading up to World War II. So you can imagine. And so it makes sense that this professor's concerned, and he gets Ezra, who's very good at what he does, and he's a private investigator. So you can see why the story sort of weaves together. And the desperation that this professor has, but also the interest that Ezra Cain has, genuine interest in the subject matter, because he is formerly trained as an archaeologist, and he's also pretty good as a soldier. There's some really powerful flashbacks of him, which I believe were him in the trenches of World War I. I believe, I'm assuming that was Ezra Cain, and so, and again, yeah. All silent, no dialogue, just done through the fantastic artwork of Jacob Phillips. Good stuff.
Yeah, incredible job. All right, up next we have Absolute Martian Manhunter, written by Dennis Camp, art by Javier Rodriquez, letters by Hassan El-Hal. This came in at number 9 for me. I still very much enjoyed it. It's still moving forward. In fact, we get more agency from John Jones himself in this particular issue than we've had maybe throughout the entire series. Certainly at times, you could argue he has a little bit of agency in issue 1, but there's a vast majority of the series where he seems like a passenger, sort of riding along in his own story. He's got agency here. He seems to be much more of a man of action. Meanwhile, other things are coalescing with the White Martian and what have you. And there's a sense of menace and a degree of threat to John Jones's family. So how that's all going to play out is going to be really, really interesting. We didn't mention it, I don't think, when we last reviewed it, issue number 9, but it has been confirmed that the Absolute Martian Manhunter is going to end with issue 12. Javier and Deniz had the option to continue it. It was up to them, and they chose to end it at issue 12 because they're really excited about the next book they're going to work on. So I'm sure it was a situation where it was a tough decision if they wanted to continue this or if they wanted to move on to something else. But this, I continue to believe that Absolute Martian Manhunter is going to read really, really well as a collected edition. And it's a book that you're going to need to spend some time with to really get the most out of it, because it is, in its own way, inscrutable, but in a different way than Cy Spurrier's Flash Run is, because this one leans so much into the visual. And Dennis Camp has said many times it just wouldn't be this couldn't be the book that it is without Javier Rodriquez. So I'm looking forward to the last couple of issues to see how this all comes together. Anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, well, this came in dead last for me, and I just had to be. I read this 4 times, and I straight up wasn't entirely clear what was going on. I'm going to say something that is completely sacrilegious. I actually think this might read better if it was in black and white, because the colors don't serve the story for me. And I know that's sacrilegious. Oh my God, all this wonderful color work. I just can't find, for me, I can't find a rhyme or reason to the color work. I know that they're supposed to, I get that the color work is supposed to be symbolic or metaphorical, reflecting some degree of emotion or physical or mental or emotional state, et cetera, et cetera. But the sporadic nature of how it's scattered. Why is the background green one moment, yellow the next, white the next, empty the next? Then you got butterflies in wine bottle. Like it's all over the place when it's complicating a simple idea. Martian Manhunter, John Jones this is a simple case of a Martian mind having an influence on his mind. But the way that they tell the story, for me, is overly. I just find it. I don't find that it's it's not a deep enough story to justify all this fancy, colorful color work. Because at the end of the day, I don't know if it has all that much to say, other than it's very pretty and has a lot of crayons on it. Like, and I don't. I'm not trying to sound harsh. I guess I'm just admitting that I don't get and appreciate what some readers do out of this. I tried. I thought the first arc was a little bit easier. I found this increasingly difficult. I found the first arc easier to see. I thought it ended on a manner that I understood. But this, I just don't see it. I'm actually more confused. And we're not going to talk about it because it's not in the top 5. But I mean, I could talk for 30, 45 minutes on the areas that I think don't quite add up for me. I'll just say that I respect the fact that people are blown away from this. Some people absolutely, they look at this and it's like they automatically know how to read a second language. I increasingly look at this and I say to myself, gee, I thought I was bilingual. I guess I'm not. But anyways.
Fair enough. Well, I'm sure the next book is in your top 5 and much easier to break down. Absolute Wonder Woman number 18. Written by Kelly Thompson. Hayden Sherman is the artist. We've got Jordy Blair on colors and Becca Carey on letters. Plenty of Zatanna here and a really fantastic issue. So this was in my top 5 cool. And yours as well. So give us your thoughts.
I love this. I was curious. A shout out to some people in the chat who listen, and a shout out to everyone on YouTube. There are lots of people. In hindsight, I feel like a fool. Some people just automatically knew that fire creature, that the person that showed up at the end of the last issue, some people just knew that was Zatanna's father. Zatara.
Because he spoke the spell backwards. I was like, hey, great. Okay, I did not get that.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, how could we not? But I was focusing more on the visual. But even on the visual, I guess he does have the mustache when they. So I guess it's there. I guess it was literally you want to hide a character, hide him in plain sight, and I still miss it. So, but in any event, what a wonderful surprise for me. Because I didn't realize that last issue, so I was really wonderfully surprised this issue. I was also very pleasantly surprised at how much I like Zatanna. I wasn't sure exactly. Zatanna, her character, how naughty was she? Was she anti-hero? Was she villain? Well, she appears to be straight up a good guy. She's straight up a really good person. And what I really like what Kelly Thompson does here is Wonder Woman is pissed off at Zatanna. And I thought, what a wonderful way to approach this, because Zatanna actually shows up and actually heals Wonder Woman. But Wonder Woman is not grateful at all. She's angry with her, and she's angry. And Wonder Woman even admits that she's not even sure why she's so angry at Zatanna, because really she's got much more cause to be angry with. She's certainly shown more compassion to other people that have harmed her, other villains who have harmed her. More so, she's particularly... She's kind of a jerk to Zatanna. And I kind of like that about Wonder Woman, because to me, it's like finally a fly in the ointment. I like that for once. I want Wonder Woman to be a little bit imperfect, show a little bit of anger once in a while. You don't always have to be Miss Perfect. Yeah, get pissed off at Zatanna. You should. She kind of pissed you off. She's a fellow witch, and she's arguably just as good as you are at magic, Wonder Woman. She might even be a little bit better. Wonder Woman ends up attacking Zatanna here, and Zatanna would have defeated her, but for the fact that Wonder Woman had the help of friends. And as Wonder Woman points out, Wonder Woman's very good at making friends. But in any event, I thought that the fight scenes, how it was choreographed, the dialogue between Zatanna and Wonder Woman, I thought it was excellent. And I really enjoyed it. It's almost like a little bit of a cat fight. I was so surprised that Wonder Woman's anger towards Zatanna, because at the end, Zatanna makes it clear she really didn't know how else to react. She wanted to warn Wonder Woman of what was happening. She thought Wonder Woman would see it coming because of the various way incantations work. She thought Wonder Woman would see through her facade of pretending to be a villain, and but Wonder Woman didn't, because Wonder Woman admits that she was distracted. And finally, at the end, Wonder Woman comes around and acknowledges, upon discovering that Zatanna's own father is the one who Wonder Woman has to go up against, that the old Wonder Woman returns, her compassion returns, and she shows some compassion to Zatanna, saying, you shouldn't have to fight your father. I can handle this. And then Zatanna warns Wonder Woman that you haven't even seen Kale yet. When you fight Kale, when you confront Kale, don't let her touch you, because I cursed her hands. So I said that's another good thing that Zatanna did to Wonder Woman, warned her about Kale, because if you recall in previous issues, Veronica Kale has a black hand. And speculation was, why does Veronica Kale have like a hand that was all black? And we were thinking, does it have to do with the black hand of Green Lantern? What's going on there? But apparently, no, it's because it's cursed. So I don't think it's related to the black hand of Green Lantern. But it's because Zatanna cursed her hands. Probably Kale did that on purpose, so when she inevitably fights Absolute Wonder Woman. But in any event, I love at the end, the battle heats up against Zatara, and it's just Wonder Woman confronts Zatara at the end, and that's how it ends. So it ends on a cliffhanger. But I thought, I love this issue. I love the layouts again. I mean, every page, we could talk about Hayden Sherman, just every page he seems to take every page, he's like saying, hold my beer, and he comes up with a new and interesting way to do layouts, and it's just incredible. And Kelly Thompson, to her credit, better than any Wonder Woman writer in the last 25 years, frankly, understanding how Wonder Woman uses friendship, compassion, and she seems to have this incredible ability in a way that was convincing, in a way that was not convincing to me by any other writer, where I can understand why villains are inclined to like her. Because she just has that way about her. But she only has that way about her because she's well written. And you can tell me that about a character, and so many writers have told me that, But Kelly Thompson's the one that actually has shown me that, with great art through Hayden Sherman, that for the first time I'm understanding the Wonder Woman that I always complained about. I always wanted a more aggressive Wonder Woman. I always wanted a darker version, etc. She's turned me around through good writing and through Hayden Sherman's great art. And so I didn't think that was possible, but she's managed to do it. And this was a great issue. And so this easily made my top 3. What are your thoughts?
This came in at number 4 for me. I really, really enjoyed it. Again, I'm right there with you. I was like, wait, this is Giovanni. It's not Zatanna.
It's not Zatara?
He's not. He doesn't have the same name as the main universe one, right?
My bad. I called him that out of simplicity.
No, I mean it's Zatanna, Zatara, and I can't remember his name in the main universe. But here is Giovanni.
Okay.
But again, I'm like, okay, so not exactly the same. I'm not sure why you changed the name. But yeah, very interesting, that they do that. Because obviously.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's Giovanni Zatara. It is Zatara. His last name is Zatara. Yeah.
Right.
So I was half right.
But yeah, no, I guess his name is Giovanni Zatara in the main universe as well, now that I just looked it up. But I thought he had a different first name in the main universe. Anyway, not important. What is important is what a fantastic job, as you said, that Kelly Thompson does. What I especially like about this issue is that you kind of alluded to it when you're talking about them having this fight and Wonder Woman not kind of wanting to believe that, Zatanna is on her side, that she was trapped and had no other way to get rid of the parasite other than to steal Wonder Woman's powers, and that really it's KO all along that was pulling the strings. And we've seen Wonder Woman be so compassionate and so loving. We even have a scene in this issue with her and Aphrodite, where Wonder Woman is talking about, loving other creatures and what have you. And here we see her lash out at Zatanna and not show compassion and not show empathy. And you understand why. Her agency and her magical abilities being taken away by Zatanna. But I love that that's done by Kelly, because there's a danger in setting up a character that always does the right thing, that always is compassionate, that never loses control, that's always perfect, right? That's where that whole term Mary Sue comes from, in reference to female comic book characters. And so I love that Wonder Woman lashes out here, and she kind of loses her temper, and she doesn't react in the way that, might be most gracious or befitting of who she is as a character. But then she does make the realization later on. But what it does is it establishes that she's not perfect, right? She's not a Mary Sue, despite her being formidable and everything that she's been through, and her sacrifices her arm so Steve Trevor can return from hell, and all these great things that she's done. At the end of the day, she still can make mistakes. She's not perfect. And so I thought that was what was so brilliantly done about this issue, and the thing that stood out to me the most. Other than that, a lot of what you said, like the cat fight and just Zatanna as a character, the information we have about Veronica Cale, the building of stakes. And then, of course, when you talk about the Hayden Sherman art, when I heard that Hayden was going to be the artist on this series, I was unsure if he was the right choice. But throughout this run, he has leveled up so much in his style, in his storytelling. Like, the Eisner was so well-deserved. His storytelling is stronger than ever as he's working with Kelly Thompson on these scripts to give us transitions from panel to panel, the page layouts, the impact. I mean, this is an ethereal story at times, with the fact that it's magic users, and especially in this issue, when we have Giovanni Zatara, we have Zatanna Zatara, we have Wonder Woman, they're all using magic. There's a danger of overdoing it and making it, dark in terms of supernatural, like so many horror books tend to do. He never falls into that trap. And shout out to the colorist as well that he works with on the book, because that's really where they step in and do a fantastic job. I mean, Jordi Belair has won multiple Eisners as a color artist as well, so you kind of expect that. But just in terms of what is done, there's a Minotaur. There's a Minotaur in the supporting cast. That could look ridiculous, or it could look completely over the top. But,
Well, there's a skeleton horse too.
yeah, there's a flying skeleton horse as well, and a giant sword. And Hayden makes it all work. His design, his layouts, he makes it all work, and it works brilliantly. So, yeah, fantastic job. This was an easy pick for my top 5. I don't know if there was any variant covers that really stood out for me. I didn't mention for Absolute Martian Manhunter, but there wasn't any there that really stood out for me.
Not for me.
And for Absolute Wonder Woman, just in looking at it, I think I got the Kendrick Lim cover, if I'm not mistaken, but none of them really.
My one disappointment with I get frustrated with some of these absolute titles, and this month with Absolute Wonder Woman, there should have been another variant cover with the battle between Wonder Woman and Zatanna, or there should have been more variety there instead of just Wonder Woman posing and what have you, and you know what I mean. That's in my opinion.
Before. Yeah, probably they very well may have been commissioned before they ever.
Well, I should say that. Give a shout out to
script was even in.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Kelly Thompson because every year, I subscribe to her Substack, and every month she does as a credit. She had a lot of her fans will show them her Absolute Wonder Woman artwork, and she posts her Absolute Wonder Woman art that she gets from fans and subscribers, and some of it's really, really good. And so if it's one thing that the internet isn't, we got plenty of. There's a lot of talented people out there drawing Absolute Wonder Woman. I just wish that's another reason why I wish more of the variant covers would reflect the content because it would be more unique. But whatever.
Yeah, but as I've said, a lot of times these variant covers are solicited before the script is even in. They have variant covers for books a year from now.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of variant covers, I forgot to mention on Brutal Dark, there's a black and white cover, very photorealistic by Leandro Fernandez, who most recently was doing the Gotham by Gaslight Justice League series that we enjoyed. That's really, there it is right there. Oh my God, that cover's so good.
It's gorgeous.
So good. All right. Last book we're going to talk about in detail is Superman, Spider-Man. A lot of stories in here. The main one by Mark Waid with art by Jorge Jimenez, Tomeo More on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. And then there's several others. Let me give the creative teams for all of them. We have a Lois Lane and Mary Jane story by writer Tom King, Jim Lee on pencil, Scott Williams on inks, Alex Sinclair on colors, and Pat Brosso handling the letters. Then there's a Superboy Prime, an Amazing Spider-Man story by Christopher Priest with art by Daniel Semper, Alejandro Sanchez on colors, and Willie Schubert on letters. Superboy and Superman 2099 by Sean Murphy, both writing and drawing it, with Simon Go on colors and Anroll Design having the letters. A very short Jimmy Olsen story with Carnage by Matt Fraction. Steve Liebert is the artist. Nathan Fairbairn on colors and Clayton Cowell on letters. Jonathan Kent and Ben Parker story by Jeff Lemire with art by Rafa Sandoval, Ulysses Areola on colors, Becca Carey handling the letters. A Daily Planet, Daily Bugle crossover written by Greg Rucka with art by Nicholas Scott, Marcelo Mayalo on colors, and Ariam Anamer on letters. And then finally, Power Girl and Punisher, Blind Date by Gail Simone with Belaine Ortega art, Jordi Belair on colors, and Lucas Catoni on letters. So this is like 70 pages. Hard for me to pick a favorite. If I had to, gun to my head, probably the Lois Lane Mary Jane story by Jim Lee and Tom King. Gambit shows up. It's absolutely fantastic. But every one of these has something going for it. They're all fun. The final story with Power Girl and Punisher, very tongue-in-cheek, by Gail Simone. That one's fantastic. But all that being said, it's just too strong of a week for me this week. And this actually came in at number 7 for me. I just couldn't. It was fun. It was interesting. But at the end of the day, are any of these really memorable? Maybe not. Like I think back to the Superman, Spider-Man collector's edition book that written by Jerry Conway that came out, 81 or whenever it was. I still remember that story all these decades later. I don't know if I'll remember any of these, in another 40 years. Of course, I might be old and senile by then, so of course I wouldn't remember. But this is a heck of a lot of fun. And oh my God, are there so many variant covers? I'm getting the Adam Hughes cover and the one with Superboy Prime on it. I'm trying to remember who drew that one.
Superboy
Those
Prime.
are the two covers that I picked up.
I'm not even sure.
Superboy Prime is the Daniel Sampere. Superboy Prime, and it's Spider-Man in his black costume. So it's the one above my head. And then the Adam Hughes, you actually don't.
That's Power Girl, and isn't that the Adam Hughes one? The Power Girl and Black Cat, isn't that Adam Hughes or not?
No.
No,
that's David Talaski. No, the Adam Hughes is.
Oh, that's Spider-Woman and Supergirl.
Yeah, the one above your head.
Above my head there.
Spider-Woman and Supergirl. Yeah, that one's fantastic. So those are the two I'm getting. Anyway, you give us your thoughts because this was in your top 5.
Yeah, it was. I quite enjoyed. I enjoyed. The reason why this is in my top 5, I think I enjoyed every single story here. And I'm stunned. I don't think I've enjoyed every single story in an anthology, which is basically what this is. It's a glorified anthology. I don't think I've enjoyed every story of an anthology. I can't remember the last time I did that. But I really enjoyed this. I just love the stories, and really the first story with Brainiac and Dr. Octopus, it was in many ways, it actually reflected and built on the continuity from the very first Superman Spider-Man crossover. There's references there to when Superman even says to Doc Ock that he read the article that was wrote in the Bugle about how smart he was, and that's a reference to like the first story because I read that just a couple months ago, and I just really loved it. I thought that it was a very well done story. The dialogue was crisp and clear. I thought it was funny. I thought it was really well done. I thought they nailed I thought Peter Parker and Clark Kent get along so well. They know each other's secret identities in the main story. I thought it was really well done. And and it was just the plotting was good. The plotting was good, and it was very, very timely. He was dealing with Wi-Fi, fast neutrons, a new way of Brainiac utilizing these fast neutrons to sort of poison and using kryptonite radiation to sort of spread a virus, a mind virus that not only harms Superman but also harms the people around the entire planet. So there was a lot at stake. I thought it was very, very well done. I thought Spider-Man had his moments. I love the fact that Superman was weakened by kryptonite, and Spider-Man shot him all up with webbing fluid, so to help protect him against the kryptonite, which I thought was kind of cool. Spider-Man had some very heroic moments where he basically had to use his super strength. In fact, the one scene that reflected the most super strength was, ironically enough, was Spider-Man using his strength because Superman was weakened by the kryptonite. I love how they can take these two iconic characters and I can read them. And regardless of who you're a fan of, you can love and respect was paid to both. They each had their moments to shine. And I'm not a writer, but I've read stories where that's not always the case. It was in this case, and I thought it was very, very well done. I love Jim Lee's art with Lois Lane and Mary Jane. That was a Tom King story. I actually enjoyed it. And I thought it was just, basically it was kind of predictable in a way, but it was heartfelt and it was fun. It was kind of a conversation you'd expect them to have, basically talking about their lives. They have very similar lives, and they have a lot in common, very similar superheroes. And Gambit shows up in that story. I thought was a nice touch. I probably, if I had to pick a least favorite, it was probably Superboy Prime and the Amazing Spider-Man. Ironically enough, although Superboy Prime does break the fourth wall again and talking about secret wars, which I thought was kind of funny. So that was kind of cute. Instead of having Deadpool, hey, you got Superboy Prime who can break the fourth wall and have some fun. But there was a lot of fun to be had here. Jimmy Olsen getting Matt Fraction, who of course he had that 12-issue Jimmy Olsen run. He actually kills Jimmy Olsen in this series. He actually kills Carnage kills Jimmy Olsen. And just to rub it into Peter Parker, Jameson says to Peter Parker that Jimmy Olsen is the best in the world. So Jimmy Olsen, while he's killed off, Jameson uses it as a way to insult Parker. So I thought that was just so well done. And by far the best line in the entire anthology goes to the Punisher when this is so good. I got to duplicate this exactly word for word. The best line is Power Girl and Punisher are basically on a date. Power Girl has a different blind date, but blind date ends up leaving, and she ends up having a coffee with Punisher. And they talk about how Punisher talks about how his family's killed. She talks about how, well, she lost an entire planet. And she says, I lost my whole damn planet, and you don't see me putting skulls on my chest. And he says, and she says, what? He goes, well, nothing, just that would be a real crime. I mean, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And what I love about it is that Power Girl is not Power Girl. If I didn't know better, this was written by Gail Simone. God bless Gail Simone. If I didn't know better, I think Power Girl and Frank Castle got it on at the end. You know, it's just like, you know, do we continue our crossfire somewhere more private? Crossover somewhere more private? Your call, big guy. And yeah. And so I like that it sort of ended on that innuendo. Of course, we don't, if we're getting serious about these characters, would Power Girl ever end up with a guy like Frank Castle? Oh, probably not. But I love this because it was fun. Every one of these stories had elements of fun to it. And this made my top 3. This put a big smile on my face, and I was not expecting that. I was not expecting that at all. If Marvel's version is as good as this, wow, I'd be impressed.
I definitely need next time there's a Power Girl series, I need Gail Simone to write it.
Yeah.
Like, without question. Yeah. Because I thought she did a brilliant job. All right, that does it for the books that we're going to talk about in detail. And I think that's all. Actually, no, there's a facsimile edition of The Dark Knight Returns issue number 2 that's out this week. And then in terms of collected editions, we have 100 Bullets, book 4, trade paperback. So that's collecting the Brian Azzarello, Edward Riso 100 Bullets series, specifically issues 59 through 80 in this trade paperback. Also, DC's Finest Superman, Time and Time Again trade paperback, collecting the Time and Time Again storyline, which is post-crisis Superman. Collect Superman 49 through 56, Starman 28, Adventures of Superman 472 through 479, and Action Comics 659 through 666. 600 pages for $40. And then there's a New Teen Titans Omnibus Volume 2 hardcover, collecting New Teen Titans 21 through 40, Tales of the Teen Titans 41, and New Teen Titans Annual 1 and 2, as well as Batman and the Outsiders number 5. So that's 640 pages for $100. That is a hardcover, and that's collecting the Wolfman Perez era of Titans. And then finally, we have New Gods Volume 2, Edge of Darkness. This is collecting the recent Rom V series, issues 7 through 12. You can get it in hardcover or softcover. All right, so that does it for the collected editions. On to the rankings. Pretty sure I went first last time, Rocky, so you're up. What are your rankings?
Well, coming in at number 10 for me, with apologies to the Absolute Universe, this is rare, but Absolute Martian Manhunter number 10 came in last for me. Coming in at number 9, Harley Quinn 60. Number 8, Peril of the Brutal Dark. Number 2, 7, Flash 31. Kudos to Ryan North. It was a good family-orientated issue with a very interesting take for a plot, very interesting plot. Number 6, just missing out on my top 5 is Green Lantern 33, the 600th issue, legacy issue of Green Lantern. Coming in at number 5 was Detective Comics 1107. Coming in at number 4, Justice League Unlimited 17. Coming in at number 3 was Superman 36. I love Superboy Prime continues to break the fourth wall in all the best possible ways. Coming in at number 2, this was very tough for me, but I put Superman and Spider-Man at number 2, and coming in at number 1 is Absolute Wonder Woman 19. Continues to impress me. I just love I love the characterization. Kelly Thompson continues to do a bang up job, and I would have loved to put Superman and Spider-Man there, but no, I got to go with my gut, and it was absolute Wonder Woman for the win.
All right, fair enough. Coming at number 10 for me, Harley Quinn number 60. At number 9, I've got Absolute Martian Manhunter number 10. Coming in number 8, Justice League Unlimited 17. At number 7, Superman Spider-Man number 1. At number 6, just missing out on my top 5 is Flash 31. And then my top 5, Peril of the Brutal Dark number 2 comes in at 5. I've got Absolute Wonder Woman 18 at 4. At number 3, Superman 36, which, man, I can't believe Superboy Prime is third, but the other 2 books were just so good this week. Detective Comics number 1097 at number 1. And my number 1 book this week, Green Lantern 33. Again, as I mentioned, having reread that Emerald Twilight and the Destruction of Coast City and 0 Hour recently, been reading a lot of classic Kyle Rayner, and so this hit at just the right time for me. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you all joining as always. Don't forget, if you're listening audio only, you can check us out every week on Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! On YouTube. Once you're there, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when new comments come out. And as long as you're on YouTube, might as well head over to the Comic Source channel and subscribe there as well. That's where all the other content comes out. And if you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget, audio only is available on the Comic Source podcast feed. Just go to your favorite podcasting app or platform, do a search for the Comic Source, and subscribe. You've got 14 years of past episodes to listen to. So if anybody's going to be at WonderCon this coming weekend, I'll be there just for a few hours on Friday. Hit me up on social media, Twitter or whatever, if you want to meet up, take a picture, what have you. It's always great to meet fans and listeners and people that watch on YouTube in person. So that's going to do it for this episode. We appreciate you joining as always, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.